let me introduce currently John Matthews. John is here and he is live on the Zoom. John, can you hear me okay, buddy?
I can, Joe. I can hear you great.
Hey, John, thank you so much for doing this. Before we get started, you are the president and CEO of Gray Cat Enterprises. Tell everybody exactly what that is.
Well, great cat. I'm a management consultant, and believe it or not, I'm coming up to 20 years doing this after my corporate experiences that I had. I do three things. I do senior project management. So think of it as a company needs a vice president to come in and just manage a big project. I do that. I do strategic planning for large companies, but I also do strategic planning for smaller companies that want to get big. And then, really, the third thing I do, and this has been kind of popping up in the last 7 or 8 years, and it's been kind of exciting, is I'm an interim executive manager. So a company maybe goes out and buys a division, they don't have anyone to run it, and they call me and they say, John, can you run this for 3 months or 6 months, or in some cases 3 years, where I do that on an interim basis. And that's exciting because you're kind of
Yeah.
walking into something that you gotta
Well,
you gotta figure it out on the fly.
you kind of hit on why you intrigued me. Now, I don't know how we met. We've never met before. This is the first time we're meeting.
Correct.
Somewhere I saw your information and I told Julie, and just so you know, John, because you don't know me, Julie's been with me about 9.5 years. I call her my company factotum. I got that from one of my favorite movies called Wilton. What are you nodding about? Julie is my company factotum. And I got that from one of my favorite movies, School of Rock, where the little girl know it all. You know, that's my Julie. And everybody needs a Julie. So I
Right.
sent your information to Julie and I said, hey, check him out. Tell me what you think. It took her less than about 20 minutes. She immediately sent me back, said, absolutely, he would be dynamite. So you and I are getting to know each other right now,
Right.
live on the interview. One of the things I think I liked about your profile was that I can tell you're a guy that gets big business and can connect it to small business. That's not easy to do, right? That
It's
relationship and that change. Talk a little bit about the differences between those.
Well, and I think, Joe, the reason why I was able to do that is, I spent a lot of years at Little Caesars, which is a franchise organization. It's a huge company, but you're still talking to individual franchisees, and that's their business. They don't really care about the politics of a large company. They just care about, can I serve pizza in a 3 mile radius around their location? And the same thing at Jimmy John's. When I was the president of Jimmy John's, you're supporting a large company with a lot of goals, but ultimately it comes down to that individual franchisee that might have one, maybe three locations, and that's their company. And so I spent many years in that environment where I had to translate what was being said at the executive level down to the individual store owner. And so I've just applied that to what I do at Great Cat for the last 20 years.
And your profile says that, right? So I got that. I really understood that. And so there's a lot of people listening and that will listen to once we turn this into a video that will really appreciate your background. So before we dig into some of that stuff, because you flippantly talk to yourself about being a president and CEO of Jimmy Don's and flippantly talked about, running the pizza business. Let's go back and talk a little bit about that, right? So kind of give us a little bit of your personal history, because some of the stuff you've done, some people will never do, right? And they always wonder how that guy get to be the man, right? So kind of
The
walk,
man.
yeah, kind of walk us through the background. And just so you know, we've only got about a minute, so get started, but then we'll pick it up after the break.
Well, I'll do the Little Caesars one because the Little Caesars one to me is kind of interesting because I started as a manager trainee in a store. That's what I was. And when I started with them, in 5 years, they added about 3,700 locations. And so if you do the math real quick, we opened up like a store and a half a day. And I was in the right place at the right time. And I worked really hard. And when I put myself in that position, I got promoted. I became a store manager. Then I got into
Let's.
operations.
I'm sorry. I got to take a break. When we come
Yep.
back, we're going to
Yep.
pick that up.
Go ahead.
Right place, right time is what I heard, my friend.
Yep.
We're talking to John Matthews. He's CEO of Gray Cat Enterprise. This is Local Biz Now. We'll be right back. And we're always talking with somebody intriguing and interesting. And I'm talking with John Matthews. He's the CEO of Gray Cat Enterprises. John, again, thank you, my friend. I appreciate you coming on the show. So we were talking on the break. I met you through LinkedIn, and your profile just intrigued me, right? And it seemed like you had this big business, small business connection. And before the break, we were talking about that. And you started at Little Caesars, and you said, I was at the right place at the right time. So the
Right
company
time.
was really growing at that time. Pick it up from there.
Yeah, I mean, the company just went through the roof, and I got into marketing, and I became a community marketing rep. I had like 30 locations, and then I became a marketing manager where I had 60. And then I became a regional marketing guy, and by 5 years into my career, I was the national marketing director, and I had 1,600 locations in 35 markets throughout the United
Whoa, whoa,
States.
whoa,
And
whoa,
it
whoa, whoa, whoa,
was,
whoa, whoa, whoa. Are
yeah.
you the guy that came up with pizza, pizza, pizza? Did you come up with that?
Only if you're a cute girl sitting next to me on the plane, then I say that. No, I wish I could take credit for
How
that,
did
but
I've
that was
always
Mr.
wondered how you come up with that? How did that happen?
That was Mr. The Little Caesars is owned by the Illich family, and Mr. Illich back in the day, he was such a involved entrepreneur. He came up with the pizza, and that's the thing that stuck. I don't know when it was. It had to be in the late '70s, I think it
Right,
was.
right.
Because I grew up in Detroit, so I grew up with Little Caesars. I played on a Little Caesars baseball team when I was 16 years old, and so I always had an affinity for Little Caesars. And so when I had an opportunity to work there, it was like the perfect situation.
Yeah. Okay. So Little Caesars, you went through the ranks and end up being the national marketing person. Take it from there.
Then I went over to the convenience store world in Chicago. Little Caesars wanted me to move back to Detroit. I was based in Chicago the later part of my career with them, and I didn't want to move back to Detroit. So
Who does?
I landed with a yeah, I landed with a huge convenience store chain in Chicago. We were a $3 billion chain and had 1,400 locations. And that's really a lot of the things I do at Great Cat. I learned at Clark, and it was Clark Retail Enterprises because I was the head of 5 different divisions there. I was the head of the capital committee. I was the head of the IT committee. I was the head of real estate, facilities management, marketing, merchandising, and my merchandising division was $900 million a year. So it was a pretty big time role, and I was in my mid 30s at the time, and I learned a ton at Clark, and I owe the CEO and CEO a lot of credit for throwing me into the abyss, so to speak.
Why do you think they? Because I hear this a lot. What makes a person like those guys, those presidents, CEOs, give somebody like you that opportunity? Because clearly you weren't skilled in all of those areas. What makes them
Correct.
say, "Go on, you're in charge, take care of it"?
Well, Joe, it really came down to when they gave me facilities. I was shocked. I thought they were pulling me into the office to fire me for some reason. And they said, John, we think you're doing a great job. We're going to give you facilities, which is, construction and procurement and, repair and maintenance and capital management. And I go, what the F do I know about that? That was my first response to them. That is a legitimate quote. I told them I didn't know. They go, you know what? We've seen you manage stuff that no one seems to understand. You get from A to Z. You can manage those projects. You'll do a great job. And they said, "You're a smart guy. You'll figure it out.
And
See
that's
ya.
what you
Good
did.
luck."
You just figured it
Yeah,
out.
I figured it out.
So take me from there because I'm looking at your bio and it says president of Jimmy John's. Walk me through how that happened.
Yeah, I was approached by Jimmy John's, and they were at a point where they wanted to have more of a professional president, someone who'd been around the block, been involved with franchise, been around along with the food service industry. It was used to high scale growth, scaling, and what have you. So they brought me in. I just didn't get along with Jimmy himself, and we were like, it was just a bad
Well,
mix.
all of us
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, we're painful to work for. There's no question about that.
Yeah, yeah. The Illich family was the exception. I got along famously with them, and I still stay in touch with Chris, who runs the whole thing.
Yeah, but that's
So
because you were a young fella back then, right? You
probably, probably, probably. And he was a young guy too. I think I'm 2 years older than he was. So,
he
so
didn't
we're
know
good
better
friends
back
today.
then.
Yeah, exactly,
so
exactly.
so let's talk about the three areas in which you are quite skilled in, right? And when people are listening, I do mean skilled in a way that you can scale it up or you can scale this down. And I think that's what's so impressive about your background. So, in term executive leadership, there are so many business people out there that think they're leading well, and they don't realize they really have a company culture that is really working against them. Can you talk a little bit about what you see in that regard?
Yeah, Joe, and here's kind of the interesting thing is I get asked to do this, and it's rarely a situation where they say run this division or run this company that's working really well. I'm always going into issues. I'm going into someone just got fired. Um, there's sales are down, expenses are up, or what have you, and in a
So
matter
you so
of
you go into what is almost always some kind of problematic
issue.
situation.
Yep. And a lot of it involves the culture is bad. And so, in most cases, you get maybe 100 days if you're an employee to kind of win people over. In my case, I got to win them over in a week. And I got to get them kind of on board. Do you believe me? And will you, work with me to make these things better? And then start exposing them to some of the things that I've learned on how you would run a big company and bring that down to the level of the division that I'm working at and try to build goodwill with them and get them behind me. And if they can do that, then it's awesome. And
I'm
it's worked well thus far. I've done that 9 times now.
I'm I'm
So
I'm curious. Do you go in and hand them your profile and say, "Look, I'm the man, and I can do this"? How does that conversation start?
actually, it's just the opposite. I go in and say, "Hey, I'm a temporary guy. I'm not going to be here more than what you need me. I'm here to create a collaborative environment and have your culture kind of take it after I leave. It isn't about me being the man or anything like that. I'd rather have them own it, kind of moving forward. And I've got some examples where, I stopped running a division in Seattle about 4 years ago, and they're still calling me, asking me to help them get through an issue that they have, even though I'm not on the clock anymore with them.
Right.
But I've just established that type of rapport and relationship with them.
Because I got to tell you something, more and more, that is the challenge of why people cannot grow to the level that the business model they've created it could sustain more, but the owners just they don't know how to get out of their way. So the first thing they got to do is know that they need somebody like you. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, it is. And, sometimes it's like the Seattle division I referenced was losing six figures when I got out there. And when I left 3 years later, they were making seven figures. And we really didn't change a whole heck of a lot other than the fact that I got everyone kind of going in the same direction. And it was all about that.
Right.
And so,
You can imagine a lot of my background is retail related, small business people. And so I noticed that your retail, quick service restaurant, and convenience store expertise, clearly your background lends to that as well. I cannot think of a more challenging time to be trying to run retail than right now. The
yep.
challenges are just unbelievable. Talk a little bit about some of the challenges you've been running into helping some retailers in this environment.
Yeah, labor obviously is the biggest issue. Trying to find people who want to work, who that you can afford to pay a decent wage, but not too much that you can't make any money as the business owner. So there's a real balance there. And Joe, you're right. During COVID, a lot of things obviously shut down with retail, and I took the time actually to put together an online service. It's on my website if you go there. It's called the Gray Cat Learning Series, and I've got 12 online courses that talk specifically about how to improve your operation in retail. and then some of them go beyond retail, but the majority of them are based around retail. So if you want to learn how do I save more money on my P&L, there's a course there. I'm not here to necessarily promote it, but
Promote it, baby.
there are
Promote it.
two.
Sell it. Sell it. Say it again. How can they reach
Yeah.
that? Where's that at?
So if they go to the website, the Gray Cat website, there's a tab at the top called the Gray Cat Learning Series, and there's a dozen online courses from operational excellence to P&L to local store marketing to key performance indicators. So, hey, if I don't know anything about how to operate my business from an expense standpoint, maybe I should take this P&L course, this profit and loss course, or I want to improve my marketing. Well, here's a local marketing course I can take, and they're 25 to 50 minutes long, so it's not something that's too bad, and you're going to pick up a lot of ideas. And they're recorded, so you can watch them at your leisure.
So we've only got a minute. Now you do know I mean minute, right? Um,
Okay.
what's the difference? Why is there a difference at Chick-fil-A and pick another uh, franchise? What makes them able to provide that level of service?
It's operational excellence. It's what it comes down to. It's having a process for every action that you're going to have in the unit and knowing what it is. Jimmy John's was a master at that. It was very operationally sound. Chick-fil-A is the same way. There isn't anything that's left to chance. And it's as simple as that. You can either go in there and just kind of fake it, or you can go in there and say, I'm going to do these 14 things today. And if I do, I'm going to execute well, and the customer will keep on coming back.
So, John, give them your website one more time.
GrayCatEnterprises.com. That's GRAY catenterprises.com. And the learning series is on that tab at the top.
You are talking to John Matthews, he's CEO of Gray Cat Enterprises, and we're going to dig in some more to this master at helping all of us manage and consult our businesses. We'll be right back. We are here talking with John Matthews. He's the CEO of Gray Cat Enterprises. We're going to get right back to that conversation. But first, Wilton, fire it up.
Hey there, it's Josh Johnson, and as a firefighter, I know how to keep cool under pressure. But when it's time to unwind, I head to Burner Cigar. Fire up your chill time with our hand-picked selection, because we all need a moment to enjoy life.
And that was Josh. He is my friend. He is the sponsor of the studio, Burner Cigar in Birkdale. Please go by there, check him out. And your first cigar is on me. Just tell them that you heard it on WSIC, and they will take care of you. Burner Cigar in Birkdale. There is not a cigar made that they cannot get you, and I bet you they already have it in their large selection of humidor that's already there. And all of you people out there thinking about what to get your spouse, I can assure you a delicious, tasty cigar would be perfect. Burner Cigar. Thank you so much, Josh. We appreciate your support. This is Local Biz Now. I am Joe Vagnone, where your business matters. We are continuing to talk with John Matthews, CEO of Gray Cat Enterprises. John, my friend, thank you so much for doing this. You and I somehow tripped on each other at LinkedIn. I am so glad we did that, buddy. I think you can see why you intrigued me, because your story fits well within what it is we do. The third thing I want to talk about, I know very little about, right? It's senior level project management. What is that? What does that look like?
Well, think about it this way. A large company has a number of projects and they only have X amount of people and time to put towards it. And they're going, how do we get this project done? We've got a capital budget that we want to put towards it. Is there anyone out there that can help us? And I get hired to do that because I can kind of hit the ground running, because I've had various experiences at my corporate role, as well as all the clients I maintain at Gray Cat. And so it'd be, yeah, I'll give you one example. One company came to me and said, "Hey, we want to do a whole bunch of remodels for all of our stores that include, raise and rebuilds, new to industry, new builds that we'll do, remodels, refinements to the store. We'll give you a $30 million capital budget. Here's a list of locations. Go out and hire a bunch of consultants to help you work with the internal team as well. And let's put forth a strategy around how we're going to execute this over the next 2 to 5 years. And so I become the quarterback. And with my background in facilities, my background in marketing, my background in operations, my background in marketing, I can talk to all the parties that have to be involved in order to design, develop, and implement a store or a store of the future.
And clearly, that's why I wouldn't understand that because it really is for the larger client, correct?
It's for the larger clients, correct?
So, what is, if there's somebody listening right now, what is a good buyer profile look like for you? What's a good client profile look like for you?
They're probably a company that's going to grow dramatically. They may have 10 locations and they want to get to 50. And that may not seem like the Little Caesars growth of a store and a half a day, but that's a big system change for a company. It could be a guy who has 2 locations and wants to get to 10. That's not easy to do. You have to think differently to be able to hire the right people that are going to be able to scale with you. I just finished a consulting gig for an automotive repair company, and they had 30 locations when I started, and we were scaling up to about 70 locations. That's a big change in their organization. You got to have different, perhaps different people or different skill sets to be able to execute that kind of going forward. So, any company that is looking to scale, be it from 1 store to 10 stores or 20 to 100, is where they can probably benefit from my background.
And let's face it, the truth is we've never done that before, right? I mean, not everybody has your kind of a background, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, I was lucky. When I was at Jimmy John's, we doubled the organization. When I was at Little Caesars, we went from 1,300 to 5,000 locations. At Clark, we added 500 stores through acquisitions in 2.5 years. So I've been around the organic growth where you're building stores. I've been around the acquisition growth. Been involved with franchise organizations, company op organizations, dealer op organizations. So there really isn't an operating model that I haven't been exposed to in both corporate and for Gray Cat, as well as the kind of scale and the way you grow either through acquisition or organically.
So I went to your website. I really liked your website. You wrote something. It's your strategic corporate communications. I want to go over some of this stuff because so many small business people they flippantly do these things, right? They miss that you should have a plan of action for this. Not only is it branding, but it really is how not only are you creating the culture, but you're expressing that culture inside and outside of a company, right? And I think you did a really nice job of bullet pointing this. And all of my listeners know I really like bullet points, right? So let's, if you don't mind, let's kind of go over some of these. Okay.
Yeah, let me give you an example. I think it would be very
Okay.
helpful to
Let
understand because I'm a small business operator
right.
today. I'm the only employee at Gray Cat. And so part of my strategy is that I get the majority of my business through LinkedIn. So I put together my blog release schedule for LinkedIn for the entire year of 2024. It's done. It's in the can. It's on an Excel spreadsheet. I know what I posted today. I posted something on how to do better presentations. That was today's blog. Tomorrow's blog will be something on interim executive management. And I have this scheduled out for the entire year. So if you're a small business owner out there, you should take the same approach and say, what do I want my customers to know about me in quarter 1 and in quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4? Lay out that strategy. If I'm a retailer, what promotions do I want to have throughout the year? What local marketing do I want to do throughout the year? How do I want to communicate in the community itself? What public relations types of things do I want to do? So it's not just for the big guys out there. I do this myself, but now I have a plan that I don't really have to worry about. I just got to execute it throughout the year because it's already written for me.
How many times have you created the plan and then thought, "Gosh, that's really not the direction I want to go this month. I wish I'd have done something different." Like the fear is that we plan 12 months in advance and things change 8 months in. What do we do then?
Well, the way I look at that, Joe, I'd rather have 80% of it correct than leave it all to chance. So there are going to be some things that you ebb and flow on. Like I know that there's going to be events that I'll promote on LinkedIn that I don't know about today that will happen over the course of the year that I'll just work into the plan, but it's still not going to waver. I'm not going to wait for those events to
Right.
actually try to create the plan. I'm going to
Worry
have the
about the
plan and then
events, and so
modify
I
it.
end up doing
Yep.
nothing while I'm worrying about what
Yep.
could happen. Okay.
Exactly.
Exactly. That's a this little joke thing we do around here, John. Um,
Okay.
so let's talk about some of these. So the first thing is set the initiative. I think you kind of just talked about that, right? Just at least start to move in this direction of communicating with your customers,
Correct. Absolutely.
and then select the platforms that you want to use. In your case, you're saying I'm using LinkedIn, but whatever that is, make your choice.
Yeah, and you could have a bunch of them. I have a Twitter account on occasion. I'll post something on Twitter. I don't really do much other than personal stuff on Instagram, Facebook. I'm no longer on. I was on Facebook, and I was trying to promote my business on that. I didn't get a lot of traction there for my type of business. LinkedIn has been the one for me. I've been on LinkedIn for 18 years, and I would have to say probably in the last 10 years, 95% of all my business has come directly from LinkedIn through all the networking that I do on there and all the content that I produce and
And you spend a
post
lot
on
of time
LinkedIn.
on LinkedIn too, I'm assuming.
I, I do, but not as much as you think. I've got it dialed in. I mean,
Right.
I can get like today. I posted something. I don't know about 2 o'clock. I've already got 2,000 views on it. I've already got a bunch of likes on it, and there was a blog that I wrote a couple of years ago. So my time today was probably about 15 minutes on LinkedIn, but I get all that exposure
And that
because I've
article
done
is
a
more
lot of work
relevant
in advance.
today that
Yep,
as it was 2 years ago.
yeah, exactly,
So one of the things you talk
exactly.
about, we've only got about a minute, talk about is crisis communications. What do you mean by that?
Well, at Clark, I was the head of corporate communications there, and so we had to have a crisis strategy in the event that we had a gas leak, or in the event that one of our employees was injured or shot at a convenience store or something like that. So we had a systematic approach. If X happens, we do Y, and so we weren't leaving that to chance either. And so having that uh, thought process, if you have a fire at your location, or someone gets sick from eating one of your sandwiches or something, what is your strategy to help get through that crisis?
And again, for interpreting from your last answer, even if it's not exact, at least it gives you something to move forward to, and then you can alter
Exactly.
that as you go.
Correct.
So let's take a break, my friend, and we'll come back. We'll talk a little bit more.
Okay.
I really do appreciate your time. This has been exceptional. We are talking with John Matthews, CEO of Gray Cat Enterprises. If it's Monday afternoon, your business matters. And this is Local Biz Now. We'll be right back. Talking with John Matthews. He is the CEO and founder of Gray Cat Enterprises. He wrote an article, Strategic Corporate Communications. He put it in bullet points. He doesn't know, but that touches my heart. Um, John, the last bullet point I wanted to talk about before we move on, and that is make sure you're measuring these things, right? So let me go over the bullet points for those of you that might just have tuned in. This is Strategic Corporate Communications. It is put together by John Matthews, and it's set initiatives, select the platform or channels you want to use, establish a timeline, and manage through crisis communication. And the last one, which I want to talk about, John, is measurement of this and evaluation. Let's talk a little bit about how I do that.
Well, I'm a huge believer in KPIs, or key performance indicators, and you have to. There's that old adage: you can't manage what you don't measure. So you have to understand what is working for you. Like I mentioned before the break, I tried Facebook for my business. I got very little traction, very little viewership. I got zero interaction on people that might be interested in my services. So I got rid of that and I focused all my efforts on LinkedIn, where I get almost all of my business through the networking efforts that I put forth. But it's the whole KPI premise that, instead of trying to just throw a whole bunch of stuff out there and not knowing what works, try to isolate which items is are working for you and double down on those, and the ones that aren't working for you, make the modifications to make them work stronger for you. I noticed that a lot of my blogs sometimes can get too long, and so I've shortened my blogs up because the reader has just become more TikToky in their viewership. Having video, having pictures, having stuff like that that just quick hit has been more effective for me. And the only way I got that is I could see the amount of viewership that I was getting and the amount of interaction and click throughs that I was getting when I posted certain posts. Matter of fact, sometimes I'll post a blog and then I post it in various places on LinkedIn, and I'll change the picture just to see which one is more effective. So I play around with it a little bit.
And measuring all of this is so important, um, because you do want to know whether it's working, whether you're on the right track or not.
Yeah, and it depends on your business too. There are some that the business might be, I'm promoting a hot dog today, and you got to buy the hot dog today, and you're either going to know whether it worked or not. In my business, sometimes I'll get people that say, I've been reading your stuff for 3 years, and I finally have a project for you. And so my sales cycle is significantly longer than a guy that's promoting a hot dog for
Sure,
lunch. And so it
sure.
all kind of depends on your business too.
Okay. So before we started, because you and I don't know each other, we just met each other. At the beginning of the show, I told you that I have a company factotum, Julie, that's been with me. If you don't know why she's a company factotum, she has just put on the book your three books that you have written. So you can
Oh,
go
there you
there
go.
by the links, and so one of them is local store marketing. One of them is how to stage a killer. I can't see the end of that. Um,
Grand opening.
Grand opening, okay. And another one is game changing. Let's talk about
Yeah.
each one of those books. And again, those of you that are listening, you can go to WSIC Facebook and click on that, and it will take you right to Amazon to pick up those books, because everybody needs a Julie. So
That's right.
let's start with local store marketing.
The local store marketing was one. I wrote the local store marketing manual for Little Caesars, and then I wrote a manual for Quiznos Corporate as well. That's one that I really enjoy. It's not written for a marketing person. It's written for a single store operator that wants to implement one marketing idea and doesn't want to read 80 pages. They can go pick out their idea, and there's 3 pages dedicated to each idea. There's 22 ideas in the book. So if you want to do a anniversary for your location that's 5 years old, you can go to that section and you can read those 3 pages, and you'll know how to execute an anniversary celebration at your location. I like that one because it's short, sweet, and to the point.
Oh well, you're after my heart with that one. I love that. Next one is how to stage a killer grand opening.
Yeah, this one it's about 30 pages long. You want to it's all I opened up 135 locations individually myself when I was at Jimmy John's and at Little Caesars. And so these are all of my ideas put into a book, and it's got charts in there for uh, putting together a budget. It tells you how I would roll out a grand opening. You have events on Thursday, events on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You have a radio remote. You have this, that, the other thing, giveaways, and you tie in all your vendors. So it's an ABC how to put together a grand opening. You can also use that same book if you want to do an anniversary at your location. It's the same premise. So that
So
one is another how-to book.
so are both of these how-to books? Would you change them a lot because of time and marketing as changes, or are they still good?
They're still good. Matter of fact, I went in a couple of years ago and revised them and added a lot of social media to it as well. But
So they have been
they're
updated.
they have been updated, and I'm still a big believer. I remember reading a statistic when I was at Little Caesars that McDonald's said that they get 80% of their customers within 2 miles of their location, and so There's something to be said about having pizza and walking across the street and giving it to the guy who runs a dry cleaner and say, try my pizza, and have him taste that pizza and go, wow, I'm going to go across the street and get pizza from Little Caesars, as opposed to him maybe seeing a Facebook ad where he doesn't taste it, he doesn't smell it, he doesn't get the interaction. To me, that is just powerful, that you control the activity in your community and you don't try to just do it through a keyboard. You actually get out in the community and meet and greet.
Again, go to WSIC Facebook and you can get the link to all three of these books. Would I call these first two books guerrilla marketing? Is that a fair
Totally.
approach?
That's a perfect description of them.
So, and the third one is game changing.
Yeah, this one is if you didn't know how to put together KPIs, there's a section in there on KPIs. If you wanted to expand your real estate, there's a section on things to think about real estate, commercial real estate. It's just a variety of different topics. You probably, again, this isn't one that you would read cover to cover. You'd probably go, there's about a dozen subjects I want to read about. I'm going to read those, and then the other ones don't really apply to me. So
That's interesting. And we just met, right? You're my new best friend. I can tell you enjoyed writing these, right?
I do.
I can tell by the way you're describing them.
Yeah, and I enjoy writing. I've got probably 120 blogs that I've written over the years, and I've got another 8 to 10 that I'll write this year. And I enjoy it because one, it helps crystallize these ideas in my own head. And so when I sit down with my clients, I can kind of go through in bullet point fashion. Here are the things that we need to think about in this particular subject because I've taken the time to write it down. And I do enjoy it. I enjoy, teaching. I enjoy doing the online courses. I just launched a new leadership course that's I haven't put online yet, but it will be by the end of this quarter. That I'm doing live sessions now for a couple of clients, and it's just a lot of fun. And that the leadership content is literally coming from my interim division management experience that I've had over the last 7 or 8 years.
So again, all of this is on your website. Give the
Yep.
listeners your website one more time.
It's graycatenterprises.com, and it's GRAY catenterprises.com, and everything is there.
So you don't know this about me, but I'm a big fan of certain business people that I believe in that have opened up good successful businesses, and one of those businesses is Newsletter Pros. They teach and help people put together newsletters for their businesses. They've been sending me one for years. They sent me an article that talks about customer retention. We've only got about 3 or 4 minutes, but I wanted to go over some of these with you because you're the perfect
Sure.
guy to tell me what the future looks like. And again, we don't have a lot of time. I'm not going to go over all of them, but the first one is some kind of personal experience. It sounds like you really embrace that.
Yeah, it's funny. I work with I got some colleagues that help design stores, and my buddy Craig always says it's about the experience, not about the transaction. And so how do you create a better experience for the customer so they almost become ambassadors of your location, as opposed to, hey, I just sold that guy $22 worth of stuff and you
Right.
may never see him again. And
So,
that's how we try to design stores, is around the
what do you
experience.
feel about the whole punch card thing? Do you like those? Punch it 5 times, they get a free sandwich. Do you like that kind of stuff? Would you suggest that people consider some kind of loyalty program or card?
Total loyalty for sure. The punch card I wouldn't, because there's a lot of fraud with that. But if you have and I'm sure you didn't mean that, but there's a lot of the electronic version of the
No,
loyalty where
no,
you
I
can
did
kind of
mean punch
control it
card. I'm
all.
showing you my age. So,
Oh,
okay, thanks for telling me. Drop the punch card.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That, you don't want that is like an unauthorized employee retirement fund. So,
Okay. Well, that was some good information that I didn't know. That's good to hear. So, John, we don't have much time. Thank you so much. You're talking to John Matthews, Great Cat Enterprises. Please go to his website. It is absolutely exceptional. Thank you, my friend. I really do appreciate it. Let's get you back again.
all right, Joe. Sounds good. Thank you.
You are listening to Local Biz Now. I am Joe Vagnone. If it's Monday afternoon, Wilton is bothering me, and your business matters. See you next week.